Hey folks, how's it going? Remaster and welcome back to another episode of Cards and Castles Hidden Combos, where today taking you on another journey with a fantastic new deck list for you. Before we get into it though, I know I did say I would be making more guide videos and things like that. However, we're getting a new set come December. As I'm recording this, it's about 4 or 5-ish days away. So what I originally was planning to do was showcasing, much like how I did in the previous game, with a list of the factions, running down all the cards type deal to give you guys a better sense of what to go for, what to hold on to, etc, etc. But with the new set coming out soon, and with a dynamic set of new changes that are certainly bound to change up how we are currently playing Cards and Castles 2, I want to kind of hold off on that to give a more proper showcase to all of the new cards and such. So everything will kind of be in more so one combined video for you guys, and not separated across multiple videos. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of, before that new set hits, take you on another journey with another new deck list before this new season hits. And who knows, maybe this deck will be still good by that time, maybe it won't be, but regardless, I want to kind of throw out there what I've been playing for the last few weeks or so to kind of just let you in on what's been going on. As you can see, I'm gold ranking. Well, actually, you can't see. I'm actually gold ranking with this list, but obviously that's not really to say the strongest there is, as people are already way pushing into elite, champion, platinum, all the fancy stuff. I've been kind of taking my time with it, enjoying the grind, enjoying the scenic route, if you will, and kind of just playing what works for me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take you guys into that deck list, show you guys the sauce I've been working with. Let's go ahead and introduce you to the Kingdom of Bounce. So here we are. Welcome to the Kingdom of Bounce. Bounce Kingdom, probably going to be the title of the video to keep it neater. But regardless, you might ask yourself, Red, what's going on? Why is it a kingdom per se? Well, the bounce idea should be fairly self-explanatory. This whole deck is, more about bouncing back and replacing certain units into your hand to replay multiple times. However, what I decided to go for in terms of what I'm bouncing are the knights. Now, mainly you have two big knights you want to be bouncing in this deck, and those are obviously the legendaries, Genevieve the Dawn Sword, as well as Lucian the Pure. Both of these guys are going to be able to assert a bit more dominance over the board here, whether it's Lucian in creating big knights into your hand, or Genevieve with resurrecting a lot of your fallen knights, which generally have a bit of a bigger base stat line than other units typically, except for maybe like the beasts. But as well as replacing or bouncing back these two, there are a plethora of other cards that are worthy of bouncing in here. Things like the Angel of War, the Horseback Samurai for multiple charge procs, Paladins to wipe off multiple potentially higher value targets with that War Cry ability, so on and so forth. Overall, I decided to kind of go with this type of list because I noticed that knights generally don't get a lot of love in the community, as far as I could see. A lot of people have kind of put them off to the side for now, and that's understandable because a lot of people, I don't think, have some of the bigger knight tools that might be the reason you even start a knight list, more so like Lucian or Joff per se, although Joff doesn't really have to be in a knight specific list to really work. Same with actually Genevieve for that matter. But regardless, the knights generally, don't feel like they also have a solid winning condition on their own. Sure, Genevieve and Lucian can be nice, but they're not ultimately game enders with things like screams or other, things like we see the big yellow deck going around right now. We're not aiming to resurrect certain things and whatnot. But the idea of this deck is to essentially hammer in the fact that knights have bigger stat lines. And what you want to do with those bigger stat lines is just immediately punch down face. And that's kind of what actually Big Yellow is doing right now. For those who don't know, by the way, I'm referencing Big Yellow. It is a deck list in the Viking Crusader archetype that that actually won our most recent tournament, which was over on the Discord. If you guys don't already follow the Discord, join it. The link will be down below. It's the biggest community hub for all things related to cards and castles that there possibly is. But regardless, that big yellow deck did take the win, and it kind of follows the same idea of, I think, big stat lines. I say this, I haven't done my research into the list, but what I saw from the tournament, there was a lot of resurrections and a lot of emphasis on some bigger stat lines. And this is what this deck tends to, or at least wants to do. You want to create big knights with the ability to punch through any sort of obstacle that stands in your way. And with knights having, like I said, probably the second biggest base stat line around, you know, pushing up at 2/2 over and over again could really make them a very scary threat. So let's go ahead and break down some of the cards here for you guys that we're rocking with, give you guys more of an explanation behind some of the tools, and then of course we'll get into the gameplay so you guys can see these big warriors in action. So starting off the list all the way at the back here, our early drops aren't really too prevalent, more so just the tools for bounce, but we'll go ahead with them. Vanish, of course, being probably the peak bounce spell. I know Dissipate is also an option. Not to mention that we have Kunoichi and Mooncaster as well, but Vanish is a beautiful spell, allowing us for more easier replays of things like the Lucian and the Dawn Sword. So Vanish is in here at a solid 2 copies. Our Cleric is in here for a bit of an early heal, a bit of a aggro deterrent as well. I will say this deck is more of a mid to late game heavy deck, so the aggro, it's going to struggle against aggro sometimes. So Cleric is kind of that defense against aggro situations, or at least kind of the way you want to defend. Also, the heal is just generically nice. If you can heal up those big stats and keep those knights going, then, you know, perfect, keep the board strong. Kunoichi and Mooncast are serving the same bounce role here, replacing units, allowing you to replay your Lucian and your Genevieve multiple times over, or any other target you want to bounce back to your hand. Priest is another aggro deterrent, same with Cleric, but more so in a generic role. Throwing it at 2, giving a random ally +2 health. Ideally, you want it to land on your castle, but you can't always control that, unfortunately. So it might end up on your depot sometimes. But hey, keeping your depot alive is fine, right? It's pretty good. Next up, you got Katana, a way that we can deal with some of the early game threats, or also be tricky and give some of your big knights that elusive tag to kind of swoop in and deal the remaining big damage. Katana is a card that I think people shouldn't sleep on. I feel like it's a personally strong contender for being one of the best ninja tools in the arsenal. I might be a bit biased, though. I've experimented a lot with Katana over the last few weeks, so maybe I'm saying that just for that reason. But even when I use it, when I see it used against me, Katana doing some incredible things here, not just with the damage, but that elusive tag. It's very, very prevalent. Following that, you've got Dwarf Paladin, a way that you can really start generating some solid knights into your pool here. Paladin being able to pick out any, you know, possible knight in the mix. He can get you not only things like Earth Knight, which is a big chonker, or the Flame Knight, but can also get you double copies of like Lucian, Genevieve. I mean, the pool is available to you, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be throwing Dwarf Paladin into the mix here. Even though it is a little more expensive at 4 gold for the stat line, it works. And also you have the Katana combo with the cleave of this Paladin, doing some great damage early on if you can maybe get it effectively inside of your enemy's, you know, lines there. But more so, you want this for the knight generation. It is important you do keep a healthy stack of knights in your hand, so Lucian can get multiple procs off to make those bigger boys. Next up, you got Frog Prince. Now, I will take a moment here to pause with Frog Prince. I wasn't too happy with his performance over in this deck. I know it's kind of a tool that you can use for extra draw, and that is important. But at the same time, I was running into matchups where I didn't have Omaiwa against these big creatures where my game plan wasn't set up yet. Things like Maldron, Leviathan, big scary creatures. So if you are in the same predicament as me and find your meta is more tuned to bigger, larger creatures, Frog Prince being swapped out for Omaiwa, I think would do you great here. You're not losing too much out of deck 2. I know it is a knight, but you have plenty of other knights in here to supplement that +2 for Frog Prince. You're not taking a huge loss, but if you don't find that to be the case here, Frog Prince is also just good. Gets you tools for draw, or, you know, is the draw, so gets you your tools faster, goes through your deck quicker, gets you more resources, so that way, you know, if you find more knights, pop Lucian, everything gets the +2, and you're good to go. Badger is another sort of replacement tool, much like Kunoichi and Mooncaster, just really a way that you kind of keep bouncing Lucian or Genevieve and keep that cycle going. Multi-Strike is in here for the additional outside damage proc. It's important to carry some direct removal, and while we don't have Omaewa, I thought Multi-Strike was a great tool to do so. You might also want to swap Multi-Strike for Omaewa if you find that you don't like Multi-Strike as much or don't find it as useful. But I usually feel like hitting 2 targets with Multi-Strike is always more effective than just a single elimination or a single board clear per se. So I think Multi-Strike in there is my tool, but Omaewa could work just as well. Paladin, for another form of removal, plus just being a great knight in general. Paladin, another card I think people don't really use as often enough, but that is understandable as to why. It is a 5 gold costing unit. Its ability, though, of an instant board wipe to, or an instant wipe to a single unit. I shouldn't say board wipe. You wipe it from the board, but it's not a board wipe. Regardless, you know, I think Paladin is still just a great tool to effectively clear off some of those units that are more so kept in the back or protected, things that are also at low attack power. You can even, you know, if you happen to pull some spells that make things smaller and, you know, shrink them that way, Paladin will also work for you. There's ways to use Paladin, and I think it's an effective knight here. It kind of puts you in a better spot in mid games, because you could easily just pop whatever maybe was lingering on the board and get yourself in the instant tempo spot. So that is why Paladin is chilling out here. Joff is here as well, because not only is he a knight, but also has that great ability to discard and gain treasure. There are some big targets in this deck, after all. As you can see by the gold cost, there's a lot chilling in the 4 or higher spot. So more often than not, you might hit something that's a bit of a higher value card to get you some more treasure to use. And that treasure could be very easily comboed with some Genevieve or some Lucian bouncing in the single turn to facilitate your big endgame strategy a bit better. Wotan is in here as well to be a pseudo game ender per se. I know we have more replacement tools like Badger, Kunoichi, and Mooncaster, but Wotan's kind of like the big, potentially OTK game ender to bounce decks typically. I mean, you know, you have a big unit on board here, say like, you know, Angel of War at 5. You instantly jump Wotan up to a 12 attack unit, it strikes phase. That could just be the end of the game right there. It's a crazy useful tool if you're running any kind of bounce deck. And if you aren't running Wotan with bounce, fix that. You do need Wotan. Then, of course, you've got the boys as mentioned, or the boy and girl, I should say, Lucian as well as Genevieve. These two being your big knight targets for bounce. This is what you essentially want to keep looping over and over, whether it's Lucian for those buffs or Genevieve for that constant charge resurrection on some of your big targets, you know, that you put in the pool, Paladin, Angel, Samurai, etc. There are a lot of good things you can pull off of the Genevieve here. But more so Lucian, because you want that +2/+2 all the time. And those two, of course, the center point of this deck. Then, of course, rounding out the deck, you've got the Angel of War as well as the Horseback Samurai. Both are kind of in here for the charge aspects, but Angel of War does carry the extra benefit of providing you an extra knight, which already has a +2/+2. So you pull off that knight, give Lucian a slap down, that card's instantly a +4/+4, and that could be a very scary turn of events for anyone who walks into it. Then, of course, the Horseback Samurai could also help you deal with some early swarm aggro if you're being attacked by, say, a zombie horde. I know there are some decks going around out there that like to utilize the Tombstone strategy with their aggro, so their units die, resurrect them quickly, and then keep pushing them in your face here, and that can end the game like that. But with Horseback, you have a chance of defending yourself a bit more, having this thing be like, you know, 2 gold, and then just boom, Horseback, try to clear the board out. Also, again, just a good charge unit. I feel like Ninja decks love their Horseback Samurai, so it just makes sense to include them in here. But with that, that is, of course, our entire breakdown for the Bounce Kingdom. Overall, a very solid group of knights and warriors, I would say. But let's go ahead and show you guys how they do in combat, because seeing them here is one thing, but how do they do on the battlefield? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. All right, in our first match, to show you guys up today is going to be taking on King of Cards, going up against a Crusader Pirate list here. And in this match, I do want to kind of use as a showcase for why Lucian can be so important and why it's worth bouncing him a couple of times, so to speak, here. So let's go ahead and jump into it here. Got a pretty good start. A lot of our early drops in Kunoichi and Cleric. Sometimes you have to use Kunoichi bit defensively on the early game, but this case that's not going to be true. We're going to go for peasants here because really things haven't been developed in the early turns, so I feel safe playing peasants at this point. He doesn't opt to throw a turn 2 or 3 peasant at all, which I found a bit strange here, so we're going to keep pushing down peasants into his face, and in doing so we opt for the Frog Prince. Now we're going to get some good early aggression here, chopping away with these 2 peasants that are now firmly inside of his lines, and we'll get the Frog Prince threatening that hovel. I know I should probably be threatening hovel with the peasants, but at that point I just really wasn't too worried about the peasants. I thought they were going to trade by this point, honestly. And at this point here, I do a bit of a weird tempo push, trying to go for some Kunoichi shenanigans with the peasant. The peasant, of course, now being at 0 gold means you can replay these guys very easily. I kind of was just trying to put pressure on this guy, seeing as how he wasn't really doing much at that point. Hits you with the Man the Cannons, though, which is a great way to clear off most of this board. Does kill off the Frog Prince in 2, giving me 2 cards off the draw, which is beautiful here. As you can see, getting another Paladin there, getting a good healthy mix of knights to use for Lucian. And of course now the Paladin combo, I should say, the Dwarf Paladin and the Regis Paladin, and have to clear out the Pegacorn and deal some damage to the castle. Friendly Giant comes back up into the mix here. I'm going to go ahead and throw my second Paladin at it, and thankfully we are going to be able to remove a couple of these cards. I go for the Mooncaster here on the Righteous Paladin to kind of give myself another safety measure. By holding on to other Paladin, I could not only give it a bit more buffs with the Lucian, but also use it again to, like I said, remove any of those under 3 attack targets that could be looming in his hand. Normally you do want to save these for Lucian, but I was feeling a bit more aggressive in this game, and I kind of was just throwing things out. As you can see, the hand was getting a bit full. I didn't want to start discarding cards off of the hand limit. So for he throws out Minotaur, which is not a fun card to deal with at 6/5, especially not for my board. I throw out a Joff, thankfully, though, and that Joff can give me a bit extra treasure. I go for a cheeky bounce with the Joff and the Badger to give myself that kill and give Joff back. Kind of a cheap way to use the charge effect on Badger, and a bit costly, but I said why not? It's better than just losing the Joff outright. He goes for a Genevieve of his own, pops my Mooncaster, throws the Pegacorn out a bit aggressively here, and I think, oh boy, okay, I need some reinforcements. So we, of course, throw the Lucian down now. This is going to go ahead and give all of my cards that +2/+2 buff. The Cleric, as you can see here, get hit with a Baptism, unfortunately, gives that, I don't think it gives him the +4 buff, if I remember correctly, but regardless, he takes the Cleric, puts Pegacorn down to my face here, and of course throws on a fresh one. We stab in with our Lucian here, opting to put our Paladin in a safe place. Righteous Paladin, the second, or the Sea Witch that was spawned off that Pegacorn, throw down a Dwarven Paladin to protect and pass back, getting a White Knight again. Trying to keep a good healthy mix of knights into our hand to make sure that we have more targets for Lucian, as he throws a Swordsman in a bit of a weird position, connects into my Dwarf Paladin, which actually ends up getting his Swordsman killed, but because nothing else was under 4 HP, nothing ended up dying to his Swordsman, so kind of a weird off to the side Swordsman interaction there. Regardless, we use our own Paladin for some cleave to kill off both the Pegacorn, weaken the Genevieve, clear off the Genevieve, leaving him with a 3/3 Shaman, bouncing back the Lucian to, of course, provide it some safety, as well as use that buff again. Paladin away the Shaman, and passing it back to our opponent. Opponent goes in, Paladin's my Badger, which was not expecting, but of course makes sense. He is in Crusaders after all. Also goes for the Strength of Will, boosting that Paladin up further. And I think that maybe what he was trying to do with the Swordsman the previous turn was give that Strength of Will to the Swordsman, but maybe miscounted the gold, so kind of jumped the gun a little bit, which is unfortunate, but hey, it's a mistake that we were able to capitalize off of in this scenario. Throwing on the Joff here, now boosted by the Lucian. Stab into his 6/6 for an even trade there, push our Paladin in, and you see why the +2/+2 is important. It makes things so much better to maybe make a more even trade, or just outright, clear off the board with barely an inconvenience. And now, of course, here he's going to go for a bit of a setup with the Imperial Guards. We have the multi-strike in hand for this. I should have probably played the Horseback Samurai before making all of these additional trades here, but I go for it anyway. I have enough gold. Go for the Samurai, stab into his Imperial Guard, hit 4 into the castle, pass it back. At this point, feeling very confident that this game is pretty much over. He goes for Forbidden City into a Cleric, which I think, okay, I can easily deal with. Go for the Nun as well. And yeah, that should be the game, right? Go ahead, pop into the Cleric, Woe 10 that Paladin away, and there is 11 damage, more than enough to take out the opponent. Beautiful stuff there, and a solid showcase for, I guess, the more, maybe not bounce aspect, but more so just the fact that Knights can be a bit more dominating, especially with that +2/+2 from Lucian. You see they're a bit more harder to manage for if you're facing them down. Having those big stats in the Paladins, you saw right there, made it difficult for him to really connect and have a good value hit out of his swordsman. Although I think that play might have been a bit of a mistake. It's hard to say. Regardless, a great first matchup, but let's go ahead and check out more games as Bounce Kingdom is far from over. All right, let's go into game number 2, going up against T-Dog here. And hopefully this game is going to be able to showcase a bit more of the bounce aspect to this deck and how being able to use some of these bigger knights over and over again could be really, really important and even game winning at times. So let's go ahead and open this one up here. Solid looking hand with the Priest on the early game, the Kunoichi, multi-strike if things get bad, so on and so forth. It goes for Metal Bravery turn 1, opens with a Battle Cry, sending out the Master Thief on turn 1. Completely fine with me. We have 2 priests in hand to deal with that. Going ahead, throwing out the first priest to deal with this Master Thief here. It goes for a mugging though, and will of course trade in pretty evenly there, as you see. Also getting the last will off of that Master Thief. I say fine, no worries. Let's go for the second priest, healing up our own depot as well. So a bit of extra health on both buildings per se. But it goes for a bit of a war party here, and with a strange little combination of cards, as you can see. Beastmaster, the Revenger, Gorgon hitting into each other. Revenger kind of not hitting anything because of the guardianship on his own buildings. We're gonna go ahead and do a bit of a cleanup here. Katana on the Gorgon, cleaning up the Revenger before that gains more value. He goes for a knife on the Beastmaster here. Must pick that up from the Master Thief. Goes for a bandit as well. So this user was all about the contraband stuff, trying to get some more value out of cards that he maybe hasn't played before, maybe a bit of a lower collection. Regardless, we're gonna go ahead and go with the Badger on that Peasant, bring the Peasant back out, using the Badger to connect into the Bandit. Goes for a Dread Pirate Robbins here, which I say, you know, all right, not bad. Gonna go ahead and multi-strike pieces that away here, hitting the castle, knowing he has no heals. Every bit of damage matters. We go for the Badger hitting into face here, as well as the Priest hitting face as well, moving it in the back to make it a bit more harder to deal with, a bit more annoying, making him go out of his way to deal with it. But of course, smartly here, he has a Yarm Giant in play here. Now, of course, this is what I meant by wishing I had Omaiwas for this. As you can see right now, my hand is not very well equipped to deal with a Yarm immediately. I do have options and do have plays as we get later on into the game here and even into later turns. However, as of right now, to keep up my aggression, to keep up this, keep up my tempo, I really would have liked to pop the Yarm instantly with an Omaiwa, and I just don't have it in deck to do so. And it's going to be a lot of me putting in small units to actually getting rid of this Yarm that's going to make the job work, and right now I don't think I can afford that. So I go for the Paladin here to try and generate some more Knights to my hand here. I pull the Dragon Knight because I'm thinking I need more bodies, I need more ways to interact with the Yarm Giant here. I move my Peasant a little bit out of the way here. He goes for a Lucian, which I believe he stole from me off the Robins. I say that's fine, no big deal. We're going to go ahead Paladin into that Lucian here, using the Dragon Knight, sending out a Bone Drake, getting a bit lucky there, popping into the Lucian with only 1 rather than 2 more units. We could have used the Badger, but I wanted to get the Badger up more aggressively. Throw out the Peasant up front to get more of an aggressive taste to it. He throws down the Privateer, and I believe not getting any value off that. I'm not sure if I didn't remember. Yeah, as you can see there in the hand size, it actually did not change for a second because he already had Contraband in hand. Bit of a misplay of the Privateer there, but I think he just wanted bodies for this. The Salahar Soldier coming out now, buffing the Yarm Giant as well as the Privateer. Yarm, of course, clearing Badger and the Peasant. I did kind of put that Peasant a bit more forward because I did want to kind of deal with the Peasant in a combined cleave. And of course, now with the Angel of War with that other Peasant before, now clearing off the Yarm Giant, being able to continue hitting face now. As you can see, Priest moving in, Peasant moving in, hitting that 3 total damage. Peasant, of course. Oh, not Peasant. Excuse me. Salahar Soldier coming in now, dealing with my Angel of War, the Privateer popping into the Priest. He throws out a Joff of his own, which now only nabs him 2 treasure. That doesn't matter enough to throw out the Voyager, which cleans up my Peasant very easily. He drops into my Dragon Knight, and now I'm going to have the back foot. Even adaptive armors for good measure to protect his Joff, which... fine, no big deal. At this point, I go for a Grave Knight as well as an extra Peasant in the back here, trying to avoid giving that Voyager a bit more value with treasure. Goes for a Centaur to heal the rest of his forces, and I'm trying to push him in to kind of interact with this Grave Knight. Thankfully, no way of dealing with the Grave Knight in his hand. As you can see, double Voyager now coming in to deal damage to the Grave Knight. Not killing it, being able, I can keep the Grave Knight to use to get rid of this Joff, and it's why Angel of War is important. As you can see, the +2/+2 buff, making Grave Knight harder to kill, making it more of a valuable asset for me. Again, here, I don't really pay attention to the Horseback Samurai, but I don't really need to. I go for the Genevieve play here with the Troll Toll even being absorbed, getting my Angel and my Bone Drake back, which, you know, I think is beautiful. Using the Bone Drake to clean up the Joff here, Angel of War swiping into, I believe, the... what was that just happened? Centaur being traded into... I'm going back, I know. The Privateer. That's what it was. Angel cleaning up Privateer, and of course throwing it back to him for some more. As you can see, his hand at this point getting very low on resources, or at least thinning to a lower point as he's playing more and more cards per turn. Meanwhile, our hand still looking fairly healthy here with a bit of options to play for ourselves. Things like the Kunoichis as well to potentially bounce back this Genevieve. I'm thinking that might be the play to go. He goes ahead and hits into the Genevieve and the Angel, goes for another War Party to see if he can get anything good. Unfortunately, though, his War Party massively backfires, hitting some of his buildings here with the Wizard and the Shaman. Not in his place where he wants to be. He goes for the Sacred Ground to heal back some of that damage he just incurred, which I think is fine. It is another card out of his hand and another card that we can check off the list here. We go for a Horseback Mooncaster as well as a Kunoichi to protect the Genevieve here, trying to clean up all of these units because we know we have him at a disadvantage. He's very, very low on resources here. If we can, of course, push these resources a bit further, get him out of his hand, we might be able to win this game right here and now. Goes for a Brynjolf after trading with the Shaman, as you can see there. Brynjolf I thought was a bit of an interesting choice, but, you know, sure, why not? We go ahead, Bone Drake away, and, we'll finish up the Brynjolf in a minute here. Mooncaster to the Shaman, Angel of War to the Brynjolf, throwing it back to him, knowing that I don't think he can kill my Genevieve with this, difference in stat lines with the Yarm. Goes for a Kraxus, what I thought was really interesting. We of course hit the Horseback Samurai once again, hitting into the Kraxus, and the Genevieve moving up, killing the Kraxus as well before it gets any sort of value, and of course badgering away the Genevieve, again protecting the Genevieve for another use of her resurrection ability, as well as pushing down a Badger on our opponent's face. He goes for a Guard Tower here, cleaning up the Horseback Samurai, meaning his Guard Tower has only 2 targets to hit. The Angel of War and the Badger most likely, which, yep, you'll see right there. Now, of course, it means that we won't be able to make a cleaner trade with the Angel, so we're going to go ahead and Cleric beforehand. Cleric, of course, connecting into the Yarm Giant, removing it from play, forcing his Legionnaire to come down and kill my Angel. But as you saw before we did that interaction, we played the Lucian to make everything a bit stronger in our hand here with this Cleric. The Cleric, of course, being a nice little tool to boost up that Angel to protect it, so on and so forth. But not only that, you know, the other Cleric in here, the Genevieve, also getting that nice +2/+2, the Frog Prince as well, all getting a nice little boost to help them survive on this battlefield a bit longer. He goes for the Frog Prince, the Spell Surge. He is just out of cards at this point pretty much here. I go for my Genevieve part 3. As you can see, we're going to go ahead and clean up some of these peasants here. Angel of War cleaning up the Frog Prince, only getting him a single card. Badger moving up, cleaning up the peasant. We push up, I think, the Cleric, right, too? We do. We want to push up the Cleric here. I don't push the Lucian up because I think in my head I'm holding him back for in case we need to bounce him yet again. He goes for a Privateer. Unfortunately, did not nab him any additional cards because he already had this treasure from before. So a bit of an error on his play, but he's only, what else can he do at this point, really? His guard tower does not kill the angel. The rest of our cards move in here, as you can see. Badger going to try and test for some traps here. I go for the horseback samurai. Turns out the trap was troll toll again. No big deal. We have enough to pay for it. Stab the privateer. Move him with the Genevieve to end the game. A beautiful use of the combination of Genevieve and Lucian, but I think more so that game was a great demonstration of the importance of the balance in this deck. Being able to bring back those cards multiple times over. I know people have been doing this before as well. This isn't a new thing that people have been doing, but still, seeing as how we're this far into the game and it's still effective as it is, I think that's something to take note of for sure. With that said, though, there is one more game I want to show you guys with this deck, so let's go ahead and not delay any further. Game number 3 for the Bounce Kingdom right now. Alright, and game number 3. I did want to kind of do a bit of a showcase against Big Yellow here, or at least the Big Yellow deck list. I think a lot of people, after seeing the tournament last weekend, had the idea to bring a similar list, or at least their interpretation of Big Yellow, into the ladder to hopefully find better success, seeing as how it beat out some of the top decks and top players this game currently has. So there's a bit of an abundance of that. So we ended up facing a couple of them ourselves, as you can see here. So we're going to be facing off against the Intimidable Uncle, him with his own version of the Big Yellow list here. So let's go ahead, jump on in. As you can see, a great opening hand with the Horseback Samurai as well as the Priest and the Paladin. I say great start with the Samurai because the Samurai can, of course, be reduced in cost over and over again, so it's no big deal. We go for the Priest on the early turn. Nothing on his side. Didn't want to coin into a Peasant. That is understandable. So we, of course, hit the Priest to heal up our depot. The Priest is going to go ahead and pop into the Peasant, clear it off the board here, and go for a Peasant of our own. We don't have any turn 3 plays per se, so we're comfortable throwing down the Peasant. He's going to throw out the War Cow to block this incoming Priest here. I think it's a great opportunity, though. We're going to go ahead and multi-strike the War Cow, as well as the Depot here, which you can get a clean kill off with the Priest here. Picking up a big Dramoth, which I thought was interesting, to say the least, here in his deck, but why not? We'll take it. Going on turn 4, I believe he goes for the Peasant play. I think he has something else like Journey of the Faith in there, but I missed it while I was on commentary just now here. Regardless, we clean up the Peasant here, move our own Peasant in to chop another HP off his castle, throw it back to him after throwing the Paladin here, picking up a second Joff, which I think is really good, or a Joff, excuse me. I saw the 2 horses and combine the 2 here. At this point, we go for a Horseback Samurai with the how cheap it is. It's only 5 gold. We decide to go for it, popping in with the Peasant now, and we actually go ahead and do a bit of a funny Priest play here, hoping to push in the Paladin. And now what I should have done here, I was a little too greedy. I was hoping the Shark would have gone back for the Peasant or even hit into our own Dwarven Paladin. Instead of hitting the worst target out of the Horseback Samurai, it's a bit of a goof on my part. It was kind of testing the fates there, and I did get punished for it. So we do lose our Horseback Samurai in trade here with the Shark, and unfortunately a Yarm Giant now meets us in the face here. And again, it's kind of why I would love to see a Nomaiwa in the deck here, so I can deal with targets like that without having to use my cards like Wotan, which you see I'm going for here. Wotan plus Paladin is exact lethal against the Yarm Giant, so we go for it, popping in the 1 damage again with the Peasant here, keeping that Peasant spirit strong, hitting in where we can. Unfortunately, he had goes for a Yarm Lightning, clearing off the Wotan, as well as the Peasant, going for Resurrection, popping the War Cow yet again. Good to see you, old War Cow, my friend here. I hope you meet the Angel well. Angel of War coming out here, chopping down the cow, bringing up the castle to +1 for a 20 HP, a clean 20 HP, I should say. In response, Minotaur hits the board here, cleans up our Angel, gets him an additional card. He passes it back to us. I mean, that's a good sign, right? Seeing as how he's using cards to pop into our own. It's important here because I know we've mentioned, those big stat lines. And right there, you see it's kind of important that we did have that bigger stat line of the 5/8 there. It keeps our cards, or it keeps the board clean in trades. So that way we can assert tempo back to our side here, as you can see, going for a Dwarven Paladin and an Earth Knight to keep the pressure up on our opponent. Earth Knight was, of course, grabbed from the Dwarven Paladin. I figured why not waste any of our known hand and go for something that's kind of fresh off the bat here. So we throw out the Earth Knight to intercept. He goes for a double Angel of Mercy play here, which is interesting. I figured that might be a good multi-strike opportunity here, so we go ahead and take it. Multi-strike against both the Angels, get a cow and a shark here. We instantly clean up the shark to provide it, or to prevent it from getting additional HP buff. Katana on the Dwarven Paladin there to bring a +6, or to bring a 6/6 to face, with the cleave killing the cow and dealing massive damage to face. He though has a good comeback here. The Brynjolf play a bit annoying. Can intercept my Earth Knight here, push it down to collide with my 6/3 Paladin, which again annoying, but we can deal with it here. Joff discarding the Badger for a +4 treasure, which is beautiful enough to kind of sneak us into the Horseback Samurai here, which we go for, cleaning up the War Cow. And we, of course, push the Paladin up. I should have pushed the Paladin further, and you'll understand why in a second here, but I just wasn't thinking at that point here. He's got a Swordsman as retaliation for this, and of course, this is perfectly cleaved up to snipe off all the targets. Joff, Paladin, and Samurai. But Samurai won't die, thankfully. It is at 4/5, but if I push the Dwarven Paladin further in, I would have avoided taking that extra cleave damage when I couldn't have. I could have kept maybe, say, the Paladin alive and the Samurai, whereas he just got rid of the Joff. So a little greedy on my part, but did not know that Swordsman was hiding in the deck for him. He goes for a metal here after and plays an additional peasant to try and spook me into holding back with my Samurai. Thankfully here I do a sneaky Paladin play, pulling out a Cleric, charging in and healing again with the Cleric to make this Samurai a bit stronger. Also getting the Frog Prince out to hopefully get some more draw. At this point, punished again with the Swordsman play here, but this time it's going to be a clean connection with that Frog Prince on the board here. It means that his Swordsman does not survive. He goes for a Journey of Faith to, just do some more hand stuff, more hand filling, and I think, okay, we're in a good spot. Because at this point, I do have Joff, I do have Frog Prince, and as you can see here, we're going to go ahead and Mooncast our way that Frog Prince, kind of get more bodies onto the board here. Knowing that he's out of Swordsman's, he's played 2 already, I think this is a great opportunity here. He goes for the Warrior and the Legionnaire. Of course, these are just big units that are going to intercept my own very well. I don't have 4 attack, they do. So I'm hoping to draw something as an answer choice here. I do draw Lucian, which I think was nice, but not a card I needed in the moment. We trade Legionnaire with the Joff to try and get some, to prevent us from him getting more cards and more treasure to his hand. And we ultimately go for a Katana play against the Cleric here, the trading of the Warrior into the Cleric to try and prevent him from getting any cleave value with that Warrior. Throwing it back to him, though, he goes for another Yarm Titan, which, again, really wish I had the Omaewa for, as well as a Paladin. He throws Paladin against my Frog Prince there, removing it from the board here. And at this point, I am forced to resort to the big boy Dremoth. I didn't think I would be playing it in this game, but here we are. Shadow Drake and Thorn Drake to follow suit, because we do have enough gold to play both. We, of course, tried to get rid of the Paladin as well. We can do so with the addition, or with everything on the board here that can move. Meanwhile, with a full hand, he cannot draw any cards from his deck. We'll throw a Mana Core to dispel my Thorn Drake, Stone Drake because he wants to prevent me from playing more spells, and the Faithful Drake as a body block for this big Dremoth. He is very low on HP, mind you, only rocking 6 total HP. And at this point, my goal is to just try and push things in and get things close. Dremoth taking out the Mana Core here, the Mooncasher to protect the Thorn Drake to get its ability back, which I thought was going to be really important for us. Trying to, of course, maneuver to avoid the Yarm Titan doing big damage. He goes for Commander Crab, which I think is a bit annoying. That, of course, getting more stats off of his remaining gold. I say, all right, let's go if I can deal with this. Go for Kunoichi against the Fire Drake to protect it. Kuno into the Yarm Titan. Shadow Drake to finish off said Titan. Bring my Dremoth a bit more speed and protection here. And of course, a little cheeky maneuver here, as you can see, pushing the Shadow Drakes up on this side to prevent the Commander Crab from reaching my Dremoth. That is, right now, nothing on his board can currently move and attack. I'm not going to play a spell, so this Stone Drake kind of sitting here dead. I think this is a great idea to kind of protect my Dremoth. One hit from the Dremoth and his game is over after all, so I kind of want to make this my investment of the game. He, of course, though, has a response, Baptism of Fire, a great way to clear off one of those cards and get to the Dremoth hitting it in the back there, as you can see. However, it does open him up to a bit of a weak point here. The Commander Crab not going to really survive for much longer. As you'll see in a minute here, we go for the Thorn Drake. The Thorn Drake clears off the Green Drake. The Fire Drake sneaks over the inert unit and snipes off that Commander Crab. Shadow Katana on our Faithful Drake to, of course, bring it to a 5 attack, and that is more than enough for lethal damage. So a bit of a weird one per se, because I know more of that game was won off of Dramoth than the actual deck. But hey, the Katana proved valuable, the replacement stuff proved valuable, and in that case, I'm happy with that. So a bit of a cheeky win against Big Yellow, but still I think a game that was fun to showcase nonetheless, because this deck does have a fair standing against the list. Again, you might want to consider Omaiwa because of the fact that you might want better trades with spell cards against the bigger stuff, but that is dependent on your meta. This one, you might need the Omaiwa. I will just say that. If you're watching this at time of publication, it may be a good chance for you to swap in the Omaiwa now. So regardless, that is going to be the only matches I have for you, or at least the matches I have for you today. I shouldn't say only. There are more games, obviously, but these are the ones I wanted to bring to you guys in this video. So with that being said, let's go ahead and close this video right now. Alright folks, with that being said, that brings us of course to the conclusion of another video. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to let me know your thoughts on the deck list. Would love to hear your takes on the Bounty Kingdom. I know this deck has probably been done by a couple people already, but I kind of wanted to showcase what I've been interpreting it as and taking my take on the ladder and all that fun stuff, and what I've been using actually for, like I said in the beginning, like, you know, the past few weeks or so. I feel like I've been rocking this list. So let me know what you guys think, of course, down all in the comment section below. If you did enjoy, be sure to like the video, be sure to share it with your friends, and of course subscribe if you haven't done so already. It's the best way you can show your support here on the channel at no additional cost to you. And yeah, we will be around to see you guys next time. Of course, as always, deck code will be down below if you want to give this deck a run for yourself. It's an easy import for those who don't know. If you ever want to see what we play here or play what we see here, you can go ahead and open up a new deck, manage, import, take the code in the description below, import it, and you'll have the exact list as you see here. But with that being said, guys, that'll do it for me for now. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and until next time, stay gaming.